Hello, everyone. This is Dan. Welcome back. We are going through another instance of Lake of Voices. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to do one more, maybe a second, but after that, I think if you would like to see more from me, at least, maybe what we could do is I'll put out a vote, or you could leave a comment down below and tell me that you want to see more. And at that point, maybe what I'll do is I'll do a live stream instead, and then we'll just go through it together, and I can take suggestions as far as what decisions to make in the game, and I think that'd be fun. But if it's just me going through, I think what would happen is I just get a lot of OCD as far as trying to get everything. But I think if it was a group of people, like, just hanging out and just going, oh, I want this choice, I want that choice, I think it would be more fun than just me just going through it, just trying to save at the right spot just before a decision, go through the decision, go through the tree, reload back, and just like, I would get too OCD at that point. So, with all that said, I think what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and start, and this will either be the last one or second to last one, unless I get people saying that they want to see more. At which point, again, I'll try to figure out some way to do a live stream of that. And let's get into it. All right, now I'll go ahead and I'll just read everything for everyone again. My grip on my lantern tightens as the fog around us thickens. While the forests in this area are relatively safe compared to Sinnlos, I can't help but feel my hair stand on end the further we get. My free hand fingers the hilt of my sword, something akin to a nervous reflex.
Have you seen it before?
Bemelle breaks the silence, either sensing my unease or assuaging his own. I hope it's the latter.
I haven't. I've had no reason to go near this cursed lake until now. What of you?
Bemelle scratches his chin casually, as though I asked what his favorite food is.
I traveled the long way around it once before. Not so pleasant. Something about it just frays your nerves. Although, even being near it is enough.
So, I had surmised in the past that he had been through here before, but he's saying that he went the long way around, and even that wasn't pleasant for him. Even just being near it was kind of giving him the willies. So I'm not the only one who feels it. A sense of relief hits me, but not enough to undo the buzzing of anxiety. The lake, Sinnlos. Most try their best to avoid it all their lives. The hundreds who die attempting to cross its unearthly black water, dragged to death by the creatures lurking within, aren't a secret.
No wonder you were assigned this mission.
There are a few who've had first-hand experience with this place, even if from a distance. He'll probably keep being picked whenever they need someone to cross, forever long he's with us. So the reason why I thought that he had experience going through here was because this line saying that they pick him every time, but that's only because he has first experience just being near it, not that he's had first-hand experience going through it. Bemelle shrugs, bringing back my attention back to the dark path before us.
At least we're taking the bridge this time. It'll only take 2 days instead of double that, and the sooner this place is behind us, the better.
It would be preferable not to risk it. But time is of the essence. We don't really have a choice.
One of our allied villages, Hemmer, is being harassed by brigadiers, a band of ruffians. We don't have many guards to send as an assist, only Bemelle and myself. So in the first playthrough, I chose to, it was chosen for me to go around, and we didn't make it in time to save everyone, but that was also the safest option. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to go ahead and do it this time. The least we can do is arrive before we are too late to be of any use. These kinds of squabbles happen often, but have to be put down lest they turn into a blood grudge or an all-out war. The last we heard, neither option was fought far off.
I can also see why they chose you to come out here.
I glance at Bemelle, an eyebrow raised. A slight smile plays across his lips.
You're always so calm and so serious. Nothing can get to you. You're the best choice they had.
Smooth talker. A smile now tugs at my own lips. I would like to thank him, but that wouldn't be so calm and serious as he had just described. And if that's how he sees me, I'd like to keep it that way. My lack of reaction only makes his smile grow, and he chuckles a bit before refocusing on the path. I do the same. It wouldn't be right to let my guard down in a place like this. Bemelle appears to feel differently, however.
You know the town on the other side of the lake, though. It's not so similar to ours. If all goes well, perhaps we'll have enough time to enjoy the new area.
He's asking her out on a date. For the most part, I ignore him, nodding when applicable. Bemelle is a talkative sort, and if chatting helps keep his worries down and his sword hand ready, I have no complaints. After a time, the thick fog surrounding us begins to clear. A slick wooden dock comes into view, and with it, the sounds of water gently lapping at its sides. Bemelle shifts beside me, stretching his lantern arm as far as it will go. He seems tense.
Someone's already here.
A young woman stands by the dock, eyeing us warily. Does she intend to cross tonight? Evidently, she has the same question. As we step up next to her, it's clear she isn't simply passing by. She's waiting. The stranger nods curtly to us.
Margaret.
Kikka the Steadfast.
Bemelle. Hello?
There's a stuffy silence. Margaret turns to gaze out across the lake, expression unclear. With not much to say, Bemelle and I do the same. From here, the black surface of the lake looks disarmingly calm. Wind rushes across its surface, a sound like whispering. Though, perhaps it actually is whispering. I concentrate, trying to place the difference, searching for breaks in rhythm. After a few seconds, I feel foolish. It doesn't matter what the noise is. Whether I hear them or not, we're not alone. The Nixi are out there. A feeling that I can't quite shake tells me they've already noticed the little group of people on their shores. It feels hostile. My stomach sinks, and I instead address Bemelle.
Where is the guide?
Unless he's on the center island, or on the complete other side, your guess is as good as mine. It's dark as pitch out there.
Panic rises inside me. Panic I try hard to quell.
We can't cross without him, and we need to get going soon.
You can't cross with him either.
The woman behind us, Margaret, cuts in with something like a snort.
What?
I know the guide will be here tonight. I have already made arrangements with him to cross.
Bemelle and I share a look. The woman seems haughty and willing to put up a fuss.
I have his word he'll take me today. It would be wiser for the two of you to begin the trip around if you're really in such a hurry. Or you can make camp here and wait for him to make the trip back if you prefer.
I don't need to turn my attention to Bemelle to know he's riled up. I step in before he can say something rash.
Even if that is so, my companion and I must begin the trip tonight.
Margaret is unimpressed and opens her mouth to argue further.
We'll wait for the guide to arrive before coming to a conclusion about any of this.
She clamps her mouth shut, then lets out a sigh.
You can do as you like.
With the matter tentatively settled, Bemelle moves away. His finger begins to tap loudly against the top of his hilt. He shifts from one foot to another, then groans.
What's that bastard even up to?
I almost visibly start, but manage to restrain myself. He probably doesn't know any better. I'm sure of that. It's not worth mentioning.
With a mouth like that, you shouldn't even have the right to ask the guide to take you across.
How ludicrous. He's faced far worse than a bit of foul language.
Do you know anything that's happened with this lake?
I know enough.
Margaret is clearly not convinced, but she shrugs and makes a show of turning her back to him.
The guide's father is Garvin the Exemplar. Garvin never accepted the guide as his son, all the way up until he died in this lake. Your statement could be seen as tasteless.
Oh,
Yeah. Bemelle rubs the back of his neck, his face regretful.
my apologies to the guide. I didn't mean it that way. I never knew about his... well, that.
A smile spreads across my face, one I quickly wipe away. He really did just misspeak, as opposed to thinking that he was just being a total jerk. But yeah, he didn't know, so he was just making, crass remarks, but, he wasn't ill will about it. The silence slowly stretches between the three of us, growing more awkward with each passing second. Margaret seems irritated, and Bemelle abashed. You know what, this time let's say nothing. We each remain locked inside our own thoughts, not another word passing between us. Eventually, a small light appears on the bridge ahead, gently swaying through the foggy air. It gets closer and closer until it becomes apparent it's a figure carrying a lantern. That must be the guide, although I can't shake the ghostly aura it gives off. The figure steps onto the shore, but we wait for him to approach us instead of going to meet him. None of us are sure how close to the waters we can get before it is no longer safe. He stops in front of us and simply stares.
Are you the guide of Sinnlos?
The man nods. He has a sharp face and weary eyes.
Well, that's grand. We would like an escort across the lake.
Bemelle motions to the two of us, and Margaret approaches, a strained smile on her face.
Hello, it's good to see you again. I'm ready to cross, as we've agreed upon.
The guide turns to face her as well, face remaining unchanged. It must not be a lie. He would have had to say something otherwise. She really does have preference to travel with him. That's a problem.
Is there a way we can all begin the trip tonight?
Yes, I will allow all three of you to go. But with that many, at least one will die before we reach the other side.
So it's funny he says that, because here's the thing. We were hesitant to make a choice, and he made us, Bemelle and Kikka, go around. But despite that, Margaret still died. So just because you go with him doesn't mean that you're not gonna die. So I furrow my brow. It's a disturbing addendum, and one offered with little emotion attached. Bemelle glares back, asking without asking what we're supposed to do with such circumstances.
You should go around.
The sentence hangs in the air, the second half unspoken. If you want to live.
We don't have time for that. There are people counting on us for protection. Why does she need to go?
He jerks a finger at Margaret, whose face contorts with anger.
I don't need to explain myself to you. My journey has already been put off once, and I was promised I could go today. I will be going under any circumstances.
Under any circumstances. She meets Bemelle's eyes with a gaze of steel. He starts to speak, and she cuts in.
An extra day or two shouldn't be that much of a problem for you. Whoever you're meeting can surely wait such a tiny amount longer. Patience is a virtue, after all.
The night is only so long, and if we're still on the bridges when the sun comes up, we'll all die as they sink back below the surface. If you don't decide soon, no one will be going.
The guide is dispassionate, stoic. I would almost feel something's wrong with him if I didn't share the trait myself. Bemelle pulls me to the side, jaw clenched tight.
That woman isn't armed.
His voice is low. He darts a glance at Margaret.
We can easily get her to back off if we make this into an actual fight. After all, we have to go tonight, yes? If one of us really is to die, it'll be her. Would staying be a worse fate than her death?
Here's the thing, that we know, this being our second go around, that she dies anyways. So I say we go for it if she's gonna die anyways, right? I stare at the dock, refusing to meet Bemelle's eyes, and try to keep my voice as level as possible.
We don't know her situation. This isn't a decision we can make for her.
thinking about it now, at the end of the last adventure through here, she said goodbye to Kikka, almost as though she knew she was gonna die. And Kikka almost seemed like she knew it was gonna happen too.
What?
Bemelle leans in closer, apparently having missed what I said. I remove the sympathy for her in my response when I speak again.
The guide won't accept something like that, I assume.
His face is grim.
Then what else do you have in mind?
First of all, you and I cannot split up. Either we both stay, or we both go.
Right. That's not a question.
I cross my arms, a hand on my chin. I have full confidence in my abilities and in Bemelle's. There's no reason not to believe the guide knows exactly what he's talking about. If we go, he might not be able to give the group the attention we each deserve. That would mean we truly would be putting Margaret's life at risk on top of our own. Yeah, we're gonna go.
And I believe you.
Bemelle's reply is firm. My steadfastness seems almost weak in comparison to his certainty. He addresses the guide.
We shouldn't waste more time. Let's shove off.
The guide slowly turns around, without even a nod to show his agreement. Margaret stares at Bemelle and me, something of a resolve in her gaze. Then she follows after the guide. At least she didn't insist we stay behind.
We should do what we can to protect her. It's our fault she's being put in even further danger.
That's a good point. I could see that. Yeah, that's true.
Exactly my thoughts. We will take care of everything. Maybe I'm being naive, but I have no intentions of letting anyone fall victim to this lake tonight. Those monsters can starve.
We'll see about that. He turns to follow the others across. I will protect everyone on this trip. I will. We will make it through this. Then I step onto the dock and join them. As soon as I step onto the wood, the temperature drops. The light of my lamp shines against the water's surface as reflective as a mirror. Until we reach land again, death is only one small mistake away. We fall into line, with the guide leading the way. Margaret stays close to him, and I behind her, watching to make sure she doesn't slip on the slick, wet wood. Bemelle brings up the rear. Each of us hold our lanterns in front of us, but it does little good. The fog is thick and nigh impenetrable, consuming the light as if hungry for it. Above the surface of the lake, it's deathly quiet. No longer is there the whispering wind, nor the sound of water lapping against the shore. It's just our own mismatched footsteps and the sound of my quickened breathing. My eyes drift back to the lake, against my better judgment. It's no wonder there's not even the sound of water with how still the surface is. It seems almost sturdy, with the sheen of a black marble floor. I've heard rumors the water of Sinnlos is heavier, with more difficult to disturb than natural water. That just the weight of its oppressive cling is enough to keep someone down, even without them. Something even darker than the abyss of the lake flickers just below the surface, or at least, I think it does. I turn my gaze to Margaret's back. It's better to stay focused.
Fall back a bit. You're following me too closely.
The guide is looking over his shoulder, addressing Margaret.
I'm sorry.
If someone gets pulled into the lake, they'll instinctively reach for anything to hold on to. Do not let that be you.
He's not wrong about that. Margaret's shoulders rise, and she nods with great seriousness.
I understand. Thank you for the advice.
He ignores her gratitude.
You can speak amongst yourselves if you so choose, as long as you pay attention to where you're going. There is no worth in listening to the sounds out there.
That is something that Kikka had noticed, actually.
If there's anything at all, it'll only be Nixi trying to set you on edge.
All right. Then, could you tell us your name? You didn't have a chance to properly introduce yourself, and I've only heard you being referred to as the guide.
I don't have a name.
Oh. He's facing the front again. his voice as expressionless as before. I have no way of guessing how he feels as he says this.
Oh.
It's probably not something he wishes to talk about. However, there was something else I wanted to say, so changing the subject is not difficult.
Margaret, thank you for allowing us to join you.
Margaret shrugs, non-committally.
It wasn't exactly up to me. The guide said he would take you.
She hesitates, and then she looks tentatively over her shoulder at me.
But thank you for saying that. It's appreciated.
Bemelle and I will do our best to be an asset on this trip, rather than a burden.
That's nice. I'm not afraid to be out here, though. Still, at least with your training, you should be able to take care of yourselves.
We shall see. It's comforting to know that everyone here is so confident in their abilities. Not enough to forget how terrible it feels to be over this lake. I am not sure if that is fortunate or unfortunate. Believing yourself to be secure doesn't mean that you are. Overconfidence. As the conversation lulls, a new sound breaks through. It's the whispering noise again. It's the chatter of inhuman voices, and this time, coming from all around us.
Taking care of yourself is exactly what you need to do.
The guide is speaking again, except louder, as if to cover the Nixi's voice with his own.
Work to survive at all costs, and hope that everyone around you has enough sense to do the same. That's the only way you'll make it to the other side.
Margaret nods in response, but I hear a grunt from behind me.
Groups tend to go further when they work together to achieve the same goal.
Teamwork makes the dream work. The guide doesn't say anything in response to Bemelle's grumbling either. I'm not sure whether he didn't hear Bemelle, or whether he just didn't feel the statements made thus far are worthy of addressing. I have a feeling it's the latter. We go around a large bend in the bridge, part of it forking off to another way. I wonder how the guide knows which of these essentially identical paths is correct when something in the corner of my eye catches my attention.
I believe I saw something over there.
Keep walking. No need to worry.
Yeah, it could be a trick. The guide's voice is calm and level. I decide against pressing the issue, not wanting to set everyone even more on edge.
What did he say?
Perhaps not wanting the conversation to be caught by the guide, he speaks softly, though I couldn't quite hear him because of it. I take my eyes off Margaret ahead for a moment to explain it to Bemelle and stop dead in my tracks. Only one word is able to escape me in my stunned state. Yeah, there's something behind Bemelle. Do you see it? Do you see it? It's freaky!
Behind
Bemelle stands another figure, looming in the darkness. Seeing my face, Bemelle grabs the hilt of his sword. He whips around, then staggers swiftly backwards. Several meters away, a crooked, twisted black figure hobbles its way towards us. Some kind of liquid drips off of its head, curling around the edges of its face. It almost looks like it's crying. Bemelle backs up until he's standing beside me. The figure continues its slow advance, head jerking from one angle to another.
What on earth?
It's one of them.
The Nixi?
Yes, Nixi that stumble across the bridges looking for opportunities.
The guide is standing next to us. I didn't even notice him approach.
The ones that can make it out of the water are generally referred to as prowlers.
Okay, so this one's a prowler.
I had no idea things like that were out here. Is that what Kikka saw down the other path?
Probably. The guide says nothing, instead returning to the front of the party. Margaret watches him pass. Her frustration morphs into nervous optimism when something seems to come into her mind.
Well, Nixi aren't slowed down much by swords, but at least light keeps them away, right?
Margaret's hand grips her face tight, and desperation bleeds into her voice. I bite the inside of my lip.
Direct light will force it to return to the lake. However, it'll try to drag the light, or you, down with it before it goes.
So, either way, you're screwed. Instinctively, I reach for the hilt of my sword, despite the fact that it would do little to protect me. The prowler is getting closer, jerking forward, stopping, then resuming its slow advance.
Okay, does anyone have a light we can leave here? That way it won't follow us.
Okay.
Only matches.
That's still a thing, isn't it? Bemelle spits. He's the one bringing up the rear, so he's the one most likely to be in danger if it keeps following. The guide, however, moves forward.
Don't forget it's there, don't let your guard down, and don't get left behind.
If it's moving slowly, then maybe you still have a chance.
What? How am I supposed to keep walking with this thing at my heels? You said it wants to attack.
Don't give it the chance.
Bemelle sputters in anger, and the guide summarily ignores him. I solidly grab hold of Bemelle's upper arm.
Here, I'll lead you like this, and you can keep your focus solely on the prowler. Make sure it doesn't get too close.
Bemelle eyes the guide with unresolved hostility, but allows himself to softly sigh in relief. He gazes at me with fondness.
At least there's someone I can count on.
Despite the fact I'm going against his advice, the guide says nothing more. It's clear now that he doesn't give a damn what we end up doing. Some part of me is glad for that. I want to help everyone make it through, and it would be worse to have to persuade the guide every time help was necessary.
Kikka, thank you.
Don't thank us yet, we're not through. Bemelle places a gentle hand on my shoulder. Let's place a hand on his to give him, some reassurance. If I feel Bemelle start as I reciprocate his touch, but just as quickly, a smile replaces his shock. The moment is pleasant, a small balm against a large burn. I harden my expression, and Bemelle follows suit. He moves his free arm down. I fully link his arm with mine, and now, properly settled, look forward. Margaret is following the guide with some reluctance, turning back every so often to check on us. I wave my lantern to signal we're catching up. Margaret returns her head to the front and quickens her pace. With a tug on Bemelle, we start to follow them. The four of us continue cautiously over the bridges, only this time the wet, squishing footsteps of the prowler join the sound of our own. In spite of myself, I grip Bemelle tighter. The prowler walks without a set pattern, sometimes fast, sometimes slow. It takes long steps, then short ones. At times, it stops walking entirely. Kind of like a zombie, maybe? Does it hurt to be out of the water like this, or is it trying to be difficult to read? Suddenly, the whispering in the lake grows louder. I steel myself, trying not to let it get to me. The most important thing in a situation like this is to remain calm. I can't lose my head. Then, all at once, I notice the guide and Margaret have come to a halt.
Bemelle, they're stopping.
Bemelle slows down as I do, and as we near Margaret's back, she says with something akin to distress,
There's another one.
"Ah, jeez." I tug on Bemelle and he understands. We draw up close to Margaret, ready to protect her if need be, but the guide holds out a hand.
Don't get any closer.
Just over his shoulder, I see another prowler stumbling towards us, white liquid dripping from its eyes. The guide's hand turns over in the air, palm up.
Give me a lantern. We'll throw it.
Okay, well, that's all we can do, right? Margaret extends her own with a trembling hand when Bemelle speaks instead, his back still turned.
If you have to take someone's, take mine.
Yes, an extra light won't do us much good when we're standing this close together.
Yeah, because Kikka is bringing him along with her so that he doesn't need to see the bridge necessarily. Margaret takes Bemelle's lantern from him, guarded relief displayed on her features.
Thank you.
She hands the lantern to the guide, whose hand grips it tightly, knuckles growing pale.
Stay here. I can't throw it too far, the light will blow out before it reaches the Nix.
He steps closer to the monster, his movements light and confident. As he nears, the prowler starts to back away. Is it only the approaching light that makes it retreat? Or are they afraid of him? The guide is far enough away from us that the fog is partially obscuring him, hiding his movements. The voices from the lake grow louder and louder. Water suddenly begins to splash across the lake, in the distance, and onto the edges of the bridge. They want him to mess up. I don't notice how tense I am until Bemelle eases my grasp on his arm. Then suddenly, the guide takes multiple long and fast strides forward, throws the lantern, and jumps backwards to regain the lost distance. There's a sharp hiss, and then a deep splash, and the voices of the Nixi grow quieter. Not silent, but quieter. A sigh escapes me, and the guide comes back to our group.
We should keep going before it comes back.
Oh, notice how, his portrait in the lower left isn't lit up like it was before. I glance at Bemelle and realize he, too, is looking relieved at the guide before us. And then I see it. The first prowler. It's still there. It's right there. Pull Bemelle! I shift around, pulling Bemelle behind me. The prowler lunges after him, barely missing Bemelle, but striking my lantern instead. The fire goes out, and the two of us are plunged into an unearthly darkness. Then there's a slick splash. I realize the Nix has retreated into the water. Somehow, Bemelle and I are still standing. We're still here.
Kikka, thank you.
I can't respond. Something cold, wet, and slimy has grabbed my ankle. Oh no! Oh no! I kick my leg out as fast as I can, and the Nix hold slips. I can't pull with the momentum I've gained against it. Margaret rushes to my side, her lantern hanging out towards the Nix. The light brushes its face. We see it for an instant, its eyes wide, and then it slides back into the smooth surface of the water. Bemelle grabs Margaret and I both, helping us towards the center of the bridge and cussing under his breath.
I only looked away for 1 second.
That's all it takes, my guy. That's all it takes.
It's fine, Bemelle. We're all fine.
Yeah, Kikka's light's all blown out now, too.
Are you actually alright?
Margaret cocks her head down, examining my ankle, but there's nothing but a wet smudge around my trousers.
I am fine.
Yeah, except for the trauma that you're going to have for the rest of your life. I say that, though I don't actually want to let go of Bemelle. I need to in order to relight our lantern and provide us actual safety, but I feel such a strong desire not to be alone in this moment. I shake my head roughly and let go of him, relighting the lantern as fast as I'm able.
Kikka, thank you. Again. You saved my life. I won't let this happen again.
You better not, bro. You better not.
Yes. Yes. It would be good for all of us to pay more attention.
For real. Margaret nods solemnly. Suddenly, it seems like we're all on the same side. It isn't only Bemelle and I. She is with us in more than simply presence. The guide's voice, as cold as that monster's grasp, ends my train of thought.
We lost the lantern I threw. The Nix grabbed it after the light went out.
Margaret makes a noise. I glance over, wondering whether she's upset, but there's a small smile on her face instead.
It's better than them taking anything else.
That's true. That's true. That's being optimistic. A nervous laugh bubbles up out of me, and just as quickly stops. Bemelle chuckles in response, and our collective tension eases up, the adrenaline draining from our bodies.
We need to keep walking.
Yep. On point, my guy. The guide starts down the bridge again, and we join him. I try to clamp down on the relief, the ease that wants to flood my head. It's not over. The prowler is gone, but so is Bemelle's lantern.
You can stay near me, Bemelle, since your lantern is lost.
I appreciate it.
Margaret goes on ahead of us. Bemelle stays by my side as I keep at the end of line. The breath of release from Margaret and Bemelle is quickly swallowed by the somber atmosphere of Sinnlos as well, replaced by the gravity of the near-death experience. Never mind celebrating his survival. Something like that shouldn't have happened in the first place. The memory of the Prowlers reaching out towards us appears each time I close my eyes.
Why does it look like something's dripping down their faces?
Probably because they were once victims at some point too. The Prowlers are on Margaret's mind too. Looking at her pained expression, it's as though the moment of relief never existed at all.
I'm not sure.
Me neither. Something's wrong with them, though. They live in water. Air shouldn't be good for the things, but they want to drown humans so much they're willing to drag themselves around on land? It's not right.
Of course it isn't. They are monsters. They likely do not understand even the concept of right and wrong.
Well, I don't disagree that there's something very wrong about them. I truly hope that's the last we'll see of the Prowlers.
I truly doubt that. Something comes to her mind, causing Margaret to end her part of the conversation early.
Since you two have to share a light, wouldn't it be safer to be in the middle?
Are you offering to bring up the rear? Because I would never have expected that from you. Margaret stops and waits for Bemelle and I to reach her position.
That way, you'll catch the edges of my light and the guides, and it won't be so dangerous if Bemelle loses his position momentarily.
That's a very kind offer, Margaret.
Bemelle's surprise is so apparent, I want to cover his face with my hands to stop him from insulting her. She merely smirks. I think Margaret may be surprised with herself, too. Bemelle returns to his usual surety.
As thoughtful as it is, I, at least, am fine with bringing up the rear. I'm used to keeping watch for monsters, and since there are two of us, I can pay attention to the back while Kikka focuses ahead.
The male bravado. There it is, guys. There it is. Male bravado.
It's not my light, though, so I shouldn't be the one to decide what she should do with it.
Margaret and Bemelle turn to look at me in unison. Seems like it's my decision. Neither of them are wrong. As for me, my goal is to protect everyone. I can't very well do that with Margaret following behind us. But being stuck in the middle of the group could also be dangerous depending on what circumstances we come across. Getting pincered by the enemy would be an almost sure death, no matter how experienced Bemelle and I are. I just don't know what to expect from this bridge, and that makes things so much more difficult. I think the current format will do.
So you're staying behind?
Yes.
Seems like it.
Yes, I think we'll be good here.
Yeah, because the two of them together was what was able to keep them from both falling into the water to begin with. And she doesn't seem to have any fighting experience, so I don't think that her being at the rear is going to help anybody at all.
But really, thank you. That was a very kind offer.
You guys better catch up to the guide.
Well, all right.
Margaret respects our decision and trots ahead a bit to catch back up with the guide. He who has paid no mind to the entire affair.
So, I don't want to sound like a child, but how much longer until we arrive at the halfway point?
Margaret chuckles, reflecting the amusement I don't want to vocalize.
We still have some ways to go.
Damn it! We got a long way to go, it sounds.
Damn.
I feel the same, Bemelle. I suppress my laughter yet again at this pouting response. The gloom we've been under dissipates slightly, like light flickering through the fog.
The first trial tends to be the most difficult. I believe we will only react better from this point on.
Well, yeah, now that you know, don't let your guard down, bro.
I like the way you think.
Then a gleam enters Bemelle's eyes, and he grins.
I think Kikka deserves a round of applause. Her quick reflexes are owed the utmost appreciation.
Definitely. If it wasn't for her, y'all would have been dead. Well, everybody except the guide. He leans softly onto my shoulder, trying to get me to... What?
It was indeed a sight. You're quite capable. Bemelle was also a sight, but for very different reasons. The way he froze with his mouth all agape was a laugh in itself.
That's funny. That's funny. Bemelle shakes a fist at Margaret in mock anger, then shoots me an affectionate look.
You should know, she and I are usually on equal footing.
Yeah, again, male bravado. The male ego is a very fragile thing.
The only reason you had footing at all is because she pulled you back.
She ain't wrong. Bemelle laughs self-consciously, scratching his head.
That's very true. You can always count on Kikka.
She the girl. I keep my eyes steadily ahead, unsure how I should respond. I'm pleased, almost grateful, to hear what they think of me. But I don't know what I could say that wouldn't sound pathetic. Instead, I contribute the best way I can. I keep my focus on the path ahead of us. Without a response from me, the conversation quickly dies out. Still, it eases my heart to be on such friendly terms with my companions. After some time, I notice Margaret isn't keeping up with the guide as much as she was before. I realize it's because the guide has increased his pace. Margaret begins to jog in an effort to keep up with him, and Bemelle and I do the same. Despite this, the guide keeps getting further away. So maybe that's the reason why in the other version she dies. She still couldn't keep up with him because he keeps getting faster and faster, but at the same time, once the bridges are gone, you're dead, right? We go faster and faster, until suddenly we're full-on sprinting across the slick wooden boards. Figures in the dark fog fly past us at a blur, and it occurs to me the branching paths in the bridge appear to be... sinking? I try hard to swallow my rising panic. The guide shouts something, but is drowned out by the frantic pounding of our footsteps. I'm trying to piece together what he said. Don't. Stop. Turn. When he takes a masterfully sharp right down a different path using his own momentum and the sleek wood to slide into the new direction with no loss of speed. Margaret must not have worked out the warning either, as she is completely caught off guard by the guide's change in course. She runs straight ahead past the turn and continues down the path we've been following up until now. Oh no, she took the wrong way! She clumsily begins to halt her momentum down the wrong bridge. Then I come upon the fork. Well, let's wait for her. I keep straight ahead, not making an attempt to go to the right direction. Bemelle seems to fumble slightly, but stays close behind me and in the light. I inwardly apologize. I come upon Margaret, who nearly runs into me in her efforts to turn around. Her face twists at the sight.
Why are you...
I ignore her and move to face the other way. The path we came from is disappearing into the water. It's sinking.
We have to jump.
What?
Margaret holds up her hands and I grab her and spin her towards the path the guide is on.
Go! We'll catch up.
But...
Bemelle and I will have to jump together. He needs the light. Just move.
I practically shove her, and without further hesitation, she takes the leap. She makes it just past the edge of the bridge, knees buckling as she lands, but is soon back up on her feet and holding her lantern out towards me. She beams with pride. Encourage her to keep going. Or point towards the guide. Maybe point towards the guide. He's probably well on his way, and maybe she didn't even see where he went. I gesture down the bridge to the guide's rapidly fading light. Margaret slowly nods and then runs after him.
Here.
I offer Bemelle my hand, tightening my grip on my lantern. Bemelle accepts the offer, giving it a brief squeeze. A tight smile plasters itself across my face as I try to calculate the distance between our bridge and the other. Then the ground starts to shake more.
Jump!
We dash to the bridge's edge and leap, Cold air rushes past my face, winding its fingers into my hair. For an instant, I think I see something moving under the surface of the water. Then we land hard on the wooden bridge. Bemelle lets out a sigh of relief as we both creakily get fully back on our feet.
Stay close. We need to run.
Yeah, we need to keep going, bro.
I'll be right behind you.
You better be. I take off, not bothering to ensure Bemelle is staying true to his word. I know he'll follow. The guide's fading light bounces in the distance, a clear signal that he's still running. I focus everything I have on catching up. Slowly, we begin to close the distance. As the night wears on, our strength rapidly fades. Even my stamina is being challenged. I can't imagine what this must be like for Margaret. She's holding her side as she runs, clearly cramping from the exercise. How much longer will this last? People have to rest sometime. Almost as if in response to my thought, the guide abruptly halts. I skid to a stop as well, sliding on the surface of the wood.
Why did we stop?
Bemelle's voice is tired, but his guard is up. The guide doesn't answer, just stares at something slightly out of view. I step up to join him, following his gaze further down the path. It's a boy. There, curled in a little ball, illuminated by the lantern's light, cowers a person. His hands grip his head, and he rocks from side to side, mumbling incoherently.
It's a man.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I couldn't. I just couldn't. Please. I'm sorry.
I'm struck with an array of questions. What is going on? Why would he wander out onto these bridges on his own? Did he make it this far by himself? Were there others with him? If that's somehow the case, I can't blame him for the state of shock he's in. The man stops mumbling. He glances above him, seemingly only just now having the strength to lift his head. His expression, the deepest sadness, along with the clear markings of terror, are scrawled across his face. I stare him at his shock, not sure what to do.
Leave him.
Well, I mean, as the guide, he would know better. He probably knows it's too dangerous to bring him along with us. I snap my eyes away from the man and instead to the guide's cold, implacable face.
No! We can't just leave him here! We've managed fine enough already, and these creatures will probably pluck him away as soon as we've gone. Without light, it's certain he'll die.
That is true.
He won't make it regardless.
That's probably also true. The guide turns to look at us, his eyes seeming to glow from the closeness of his lantern. For the first time, I feel uncomfortable in his presence.
Whoever shelters him will only risk dragging themselves down with him. Leave him.
Oh man, this is a tough one, guys. This one's a tough one. Because we could leave him, and we'd probably be better off for it. But if we take him along, I mean, he's like shell-shocked. And he'll probably fall prey to a trick. Or maybe he'll have like the desire to off himself and take us with him. I'm gonna save here tentatively. Dude. Whoa. I glance at the others. Bemelle is outraged, but Margaret is staring at the man with something like fear. She's uneasy, but she doesn't voice her concerns. I'm trying to think of some kind of compromise when the guide speaks again, his voice cutting.
If the man comes, then whoever is shielding him will have to remain at a distance from the rest of the group. Far enough that you can't see me, just my light. That is how you will travel across the bridges.
Oh man. That's kind of the ultimatum right there. If we bring him along, he doesn't want him anywhere near him because he's going to cause an issue. So you got to be so far away you can barely keep up with him. Because this dude was sprinting earlier. And we only caught up to him because he stopped. Oh, that's a tough decision, man.
I didn't agree to lead this man, and I won't. If you ask me to, I will leave you all behind.
I mean, that's fair enough. He only agreed to those guys. He agreed to Margaret because that was the deal that he made with her. And he agreed to these two, Kikka and Bemelle, probably because they're soldiers and they probably able to take care of themselves to a degree. I mean, to which they have, some would say. Adrenaline surges through my veins and I tense up. It's a painful reminder that the guide isn't here to save our lives, but merely to show us the way. We're on our own. Oh, guys, what do I do? What do I do? Margaret, Bemelle, and I frantically share more looks between each other, trying to communicate without words. None of us have a desire to speak and be the first to make a choice. But of course, Kikka's going to be the one that has to make that choice, right? The man is standing now, though still hunched with his arms wrapped around himself as if expecting a blow. He stares at the ground rather than at us. Because of this, I'm having trouble reading his face. What exactly happened to him?
Are you well, stranger? Do you know where you are and why you're here?
He glances up, not at me, but towards me, his eyes resting somewhere near my collarbone.
I'm fine. You all can go on your way. Forget you even saw me here.
Okay, that's a weird response.
That's absurd. You have no way to defend yourself. We can't leave you.
Yes, I'm sure in your eyes I might not seem like much, but that's not exactly a fair shake.
Why, is there something about you?
Maybe in a perfect world, every man would be as large as you. But that's not how things always go. Doesn't mean I'm defenseless.
Maybe he's a martial artist. Maybe he's like a role-playing monk or something. The man's response is meandering. The words themselves seem to be in good jest, but he's still barely looking at us, fidgeting with his hands. Bemelle frowns, unimpressed.
It was a joke.
Okay. So yeah, I think he knows that if we leave him, he'll probably die. He smiles hesitantly, making eye contact with each of us for the first time.
What part of it was supposed to be the joke? Do you even realize what is happening in this moment?
I'm sure he does. It seems like he just lost the rest of his party.
Never mind. Forget that too. Point is, I'm alright.
For now, guy.
You were curled up in a ball when we met.
Exactly. Something must be wrong with you.
Oh no, sounds like you've been talking with my father.
Huh. He lets out a weak little laugh, coupled with an eyebrow raise, voice trembling. No one really knows what to make of this. The man gives a small wave and begins down the path we came. Bemelle huffs, tossing his hands into the air.
That's not even the right way.
It could be if he's trying to get to the side we came from.
That's true, we didn't see him anywhere along the way in the first place.
He must have come quite a ways if it was the other shore that he started on.
The man's smile grows.
Good. That's not so bad.
What do you mean? There is no response to this remark, unsure of what could be said.
I still think he should come with us. A person needs a light, and the guide himself said he won't be able to manage on his own. Sticking with us is his best option.
Yeah, but then, I mean, there must have been a reason for him to started crossing in the first place. And then to go back the other way, and then what? Only to go around the long way all over again? I don't know. I mean, I think that you should leave that up to him. I look over the man's body, noting the scrawniness of his limbs. Scrawny, but not necessarily lacking in muscle. The bravado he was showing us as he tried to leave us has faded yet again, and now he's standing quietly, looking at us as if watching a play. Interest, but no true connection to the events.
It's easy for you to say such things, but whose light are you offering?
That's true, he already has his light gone.
It's not mine, and you are putting her in even more danger with your own presence already.
Bemelle looks at Margaret. She avoids his gaze.
Perhaps I could have let him share my light before, but the guide has said the one with him has to remain behind, and I simply wouldn't be able to manage it.
She's right. She barely managed to be able to jump across that bridge to begin with, to save herself, to get back to the guide. Like, if we hadn't continued straight on to help her, she probably wouldn't have made it at all. Bemelle's hands turns into fists. He looks away but doesn't say anything. For a moment, no one does. I feel a cold sweat on my brow as if what I feared come to pass. He's stopping us from protecting another. Why must he get involved now? Why can he not leave us to make our own decisions? Probably because he knows that if you take this guy in, definitely somebody is dying because of him. But I wonder if that's because he can see the future, or he's seen this before, or if he's just making an educated guess. I don't know.
You... Don't worry about me. I'll be on my way now.
Oh, that's not going to be good. The man's voice is full of something I cannot place, and he starts to shuffle back down the way we came, arms still clenched around himself. Margaret might not be able to take him, but there's another way this could be solved. I could stay back with him. It'll put Bemelle and myself at significantly more risk, but at least this man will stand a chance. I mean, as a soldier, I think we have to, right? This is what they're here for. I straighten my arm out like a rod, blocking his progress past me. He stops, perplexed.
I am not afraid to stay behind, as long as Bemelle can remain up front with you in your light.
The guide doesn't say anything, doesn't even blink. Margaret covers her mouth with her hand, muffling some sort of gasp. Bemelle smiles sadly at me. He knows that we're risking ourselves for this man because he was putting up such a show about trying to save him, even though he had no way and no power to do anything about it.
One can always count on you, Kikka.
Yeah. I mean, that seems to be turning out the way, but are we gonna die because of it? The man, meanwhile, stands with his mouth agape, truly and genuinely shocked.
Well, what will it be?
Margaret sputters for a second, searching for words but clearly unaware of what to say. Bemelle chimes in before she can get anything audible out.
I can stay in between you and the guide. I don't need to be right next to either of you. That way you won't have to worry about a repeat of what happened earlier.
I wouldn't refuse you being here.
The guide doesn't acknowledge them. He stares at the stranger. The man shakes under the attention.
No, really. I could just go on my own. It's fine.
I step closer to him, lending the support he seems to desperately
You
need.
do not need to go this alone. I will protect you.
The man stares at me. I return his gaze, willing him to see my certainty. There need be no blood spilled tonight. Slowly, the fear melts off of his face, replaced with something like resignation. Then he drops his gaze to the floor.
Okay.
All right.
It seems as though someone else had offered their help to him earlier tonight, and they died because of it, and that's why he was so sorry, is that maybe he was destined to die or something. I grasp his shoulder and turn to the rest of the group.
You should get a head start, correct? You'll have to put some distance between us.
No, we don't have to do that.
No, you do. The guide said you had to, otherwise he wouldn't do anything for you.
Yes, we do.
Unnervingly, there's a hint of an emotion in the guide's usually empty voice. Anger. He starts to walk, not waiting for a reply. Margaret grits her teeth, eyes filling with tears, face flushed. She mumbles something in a small voice, something I'm just near enough to hear.
Why am I always so powerless?
The statement catches me somewhat off guard. Margaret, powerless? She's not a mercenary, to be sure, but she seems so certain of herself. Then again, I don't know the reason she needs to cross this lake. Before I can decide whether I should respond, the tears fade from her eyes. Margaret takes a deep breath.
Please be careful.
Ooh, we will be careful, or at least as close to it as we can get. She takes a few steps back, lingering near enough for Bemelle. Bemelle smiles, first at the stranger, then at me.
Take care back here, all right? We'll all be together again when we reach the halfway island. It won't be too much longer now.
What do you know, bro? You don't know.
We'll have a nice little camp out, and you can properly introduce yourself to us. Maybe even tell a real joke or two.
The man emits a nervous little laugh and ducks his head. The prospect must not be enticing to him. With the stranger having pulled himself out of the conversation, Bemelle looks seriously at me.
I'm sorry to put you in even more.
Stop.
Bemelle shakes his head, still smiling.
I don't begrudge you at all. In fact, I'm glad you did. All I want is for you to remember that goal. Each of us, together, on the island, and then on the other shore, safe. This isn't about what our job is, or where other people need us to be.
I nod in response. Bemelle opens his mouth, then closes it. He swallows hard.
You too.
I'm surprised to his voice wavering slightly. He swallows again, then continues.
You two should look out for each other.
He takes a few steps back, as if to go, but his eyes don't leave mine.
Watch out for yourself, too, not just for everyone else.
I will.
The guide's figure disappears, with only his lantern to lead the way. Bemelle and Margaret are finally forced to leave us behind and catch up with him. I watch them disappear into the fog, an odd feeling in the pit of my stomach. I cannot recall the last time I had difficulty seeing someone leave.
You should go after them.
I start. I almost forgot the man was there, standing right next to me. Now he looks at me with desperate eyes.
You don't need to do this.
What?
I'd rather know you returned to them safe, and that you all had a chance to make it back together. The way they acted, having to go on without you, no one would feel that way for me. I'm not worth it.
Yeah, something happened with him. He's traumatized.
That's not...
I stop, unable to say the last word. Can I claim that he's wrong? This is the one thing he has seemed sure of, and I do not know him. Empty platitudes may be worse than nothing at all. He smirks at my mumbling reply. I'm caught off guard by the change. With only that, it seems he's in his element.
It's true.
He continues to grin, more so to himself than me.
You lot certainly made a scene, huh? That's nice. Being loved and all.
He clarifies after I must have given an undesired reaction to his statement. I am so disconnected with myself, I am unsure if surprise appeared on my face, or if it was a lack of emotion that put him off.
I don't know exactly what kind of love it is you share, but there has to be a bond in that group of yours.
He laughs, and then speaks quietly.
It doesn't matter. I could still try for the other shore. Go.
Let's stay. My certainty shocks him. I can tell immediately he has returned to his meeker self. The man starts to speak again, but I interrupt.
We should start walking. That should be enough of a head start for them.
He hesitates a moment, but ultimately begins walking at my side. I'm relieved. I can never be quite sure what will come from this one. Yeah, there's something about him that just seems suspicious, but at the same time, with how the events have played out so far, I feel like Kikka wouldn't leave him behind. As Bemelle said, you can always count on her. We move in silence. The man doesn't seem to want to speak anymore, but he keeps glancing at me, as if expecting something. Maybe he was only putting up a front, being, that he could make it to the other side himself. Somehow, his odd behavior is comforting rather than disconcerting. Perhaps it's because he's more nervous about all this than I am. It's putting me at ease, making me feel more capable. I shouldn't allow myself to get comfortable, however. We're in a more dangerous position than ever. The whispering from the lake, so faint after Bemelle's close call, now surges forth. It grows nigh unbearable, the creatures teeming below the surface. I dare not speculate on what has them so excited.
Have you a name?